Hello and welcome to WION Live Broadcast. I'm Simon Marks, live from Washington, D.C. And these are the top headlines of this Tuesday. News just in, US President Joe Biden will host the leaders of Sweden and Finland at the White House on Thursday after they announced they're planning to join NATO in light of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Russian presidential spokesman Dmitry Peskov says Western countries, including the United States, are conducting a hybrid war against Russia and have become hostile states. American retail giant Walmart reports a 25% drop in profits, citing higher costs for labor, food and fuel. Shares dropped over 6% in pre-market trading. British Foreign Secretary Liz Truss says the UK will draft a new post-Brexit trade protocol with Northern Ireland soon, but prefers a negotiated solution with the European Union. Taliban authorities dissolve Afghanistan's Independent Human Rights Commission, saying it's unnecessary. But the country's interior minister promises very good news soon on girls' education. And India's defence minister launches 2 made-in-India warships in Mumbai. It's the first time that 2 indigenously built warships have been launched together. The US President Joe Biden is on his way to Buffalo, New York at this hour to denounce Saturday's racist shooting massacre. He'll call it despicable. He'll spend 2 hours today meeting the families of the 10 victims, most of them black, paying respect and then denouncing white supremacy in an address to the nation. He'll urge Congress to pass meaningful gun control laws and will hope to rekindle a national debate over the easy availability of military-style assault weapons in the United States. Meanwhile, a collection of online postings suggest that the Buffalo suspect had been preparing for the racist massacre for months. He wrote details of his plans to murder dozens of black people in statements posted online over the past 5 months. The newly discovered writings were posted on Discord, a chat application. 600 pages of messages featuring thousands of lines of racist, anti-Semitic and often rambling remarks, and including details on how the suspect apparently planned and practiced for his attack, and how he paid for his weaponry. There's also repeated references to the white supremacist ideology known as replacement theory. It's a conspiracy theory that argues white Americans are at risk of being replaced in US society by immigrants and people of colour. The theory, once confined to conspiracy websites and fringe publications, has found a larger audience in recent years. Meanwhile, on the West Coast in California, the suspect in Sunday's church shooting has been identified as a Chinese immigrant motivated by hate for Taiwanese people. The suspect had lawfully purchased 2 pistols in Las Vegas and made brief comments when he was taken into custody.
The individual involved in this heinous crime is David Cho, 68, of Las Vegas. Was a politically motivated hate incident, agreements that this individual had between himself and the Taiwanese community at large.
A hate crime because he targeted Taiwanese parishioners at that church on Sunday. Joining me now live from New York is WION's correspondent William Denzelo. Will, we know that Joe Biden is right now, on his way to Buffalo. And when he gets there, plans, according to White House officials, to make a blistering address in which he'll talk about what he's calling a despicable terrorist act by the alleged shooter who descended on that supermarket in Buffalo. He's also going to call for Congress to do something about gun control. But the passion of the address notwithstanding, absolutely nothing's going to change here, is it?
Well, Simon, it's absolutely right, of course. How many times have we discussed the issue of gun control in the wake of a mass shooting in the United States? There have been repeated calls from politicians here in the country to see radical change in the wake of shootings that we have seen transpire. And yet again, we've seen repeatedly roadblocks put in the way. Of course, there have been so many calls for limitations when it comes to assault-style rifles, capacity limits on magazines, and always so many roadblocks we've seen in the past. But again, we can in some gun legislation, so we can expect to see a renewed push in the wake of this mass shooting in Buffalo. Now, of course, on top of the issue of gun control, we can also expect the president to describe what he is expected, according to White House officials, say this was terrorism. A White House official saying terrorism motivated by a powerful and perverse ideology. So we can also expect President Biden to go into the motives behind what transpired over the weekend.
But on this issue of the spread of hate in America, and we saw that so dramatically exhibited this weekend. I mean, it literally bookended across the weekend. The shooting in Buffalo, New York, a white supremacist act allegedly. The shooting in California, allegedly, again, a hate crime targeting Taiwanese parishioners. I mean, the White House was saying yesterday it's important for Americans to call out hate wherever they see it. But at the same time, the White House press secretary held back specifically from naming a prominent TV host on the Fox News channel here who has amplified replacement theory and essentially assisted in bringing it to the mainstream. So, I mean, how far is the White House willing to go when it talks about confronting hate, which was absolutely the motivation in many ways, Joe Biden says, for his own presidential run relating to the white supremacist marches and protests that were taking place with deadly implications in Charlottesville during the Trump administration?
That's absolutely right, Simon. Of course, we all remember at his inauguration his vows to try and heal the country, to bring it together. And it obviously, in the case of these kind of shootings, show the deep schisms that remain in American society. And there's been so much blame already apportioned since this weekend, since this shooting occurred. We heard from New York's governor, Kathy Hochul, pointing some of the blame at social media companies. Of course, this was an event that was live streamed for several minutes before it was taken down. Kathy Hochul says that social media needs to take more responsibility over its content to stop hate being espoused on its platforms. And of course, the real question, as you rightly mentioned, is what more can be done when it comes to healing these divides, and what can be done when it comes to some of the rhetoric we see, not just on minor, more fringe elements of social media, but also when it comes to mass media. And of course, you rightly mentioned the likes of Fox News, that so many media commentators here in the US have been pointing to, and pointing the fact that replacement theory has been receiving a huge amount of airtime. A number of lawmakers as well very much picking up on that point of replacement theory. The likes of representatives including Newt Gingrich have mentioned replacement theory in the past as well. So of course this is a major issue that we can expect President Biden and his administration to be grilled on, and what exactly can be done to heal this nation, and for the president to live up to his promises and his mandate of addressing some of these divides that remain in American society.
Hugely complicated. William Denzelo reporting for WION Live today from New York City. Thanks very much indeed for being there for us. In other news here, the United States Supreme Court has ruled in favour of Republican Senator Ted Cruz in a case relating to campaign finance with big implications for politicians all over the United States. Senator Cruz challenged a campaign finance law that limits the use of post-election funds to reimburse candidates' expenses and loans. The court ruled that the regulation in question places a burden on core political speech without proper justification. The justices said the 20-year-old provision violates the Constitution's guarantee of free speech. The restriction was part of the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act passed in 2002. It puts a cap of $250,000 on repayments that can be made to candidates using money donated after an election has taken place. Senator Cruz had loaned $260,000 to his successful 2018 campaign. But nearly 3 weeks after the election, $10,000 in personal loans to the senator remained unpaid. The decision has split the Conservative majority court along ideological lines, with Liberal justices arguing in dissent. President Biden has ordered the re-establishment of US troop presence in Somalia. White House officials say the troops will help local forces defeat the Al-Qaeda-linked Al-Shabaab insurgency in the country.
US President Joe Biden has ordered the redeployment of hundreds of ground troops to Somalia, officials said on Monday. It's a move that largely reverses a withdrawal carried out by Biden's predecessor, Donald Trump. Prior to that removal, the US had around 700 troops in Somalia. Their purpose, to help local forces defeat the Al-Qaeda-linked Al-Shabaab insurgency. Biden's revamped presence will include fewer than 500 soldiers. Here's White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre.
This is a repositioning of forces already in theater who have traveled in and out of Somalia on an episodic basis since the previous administration made the decision to withdraw. That was back in January 2021, as you might recall. As we've emphasized throughout his administration, we're approaching counterterrorism in a manner tailored to the particular terrorist threats that we see emerging from particular countries. Today in Somalia, we face Al-Qaeda's largest and wealthiest global affiliate, and one that holds substantial territorial safe haven.
Al-Shabaab is seeking to topple Somalia's government, which has little control of the country beyond the capital. The insurgent group frequently carries out bombings in Mogadishu and elsewhere. The insecurity makes holding typical elections impossible. On Sunday, former leader Hassan Sheikh Mohamud won the presidency again in a vote held by Parliament behind blast walls. The Pentagon said troops would not be directly fighting in combat operations, but working to train, advise and equip Somali forces.
Now moving on to Afghanistan, where the Taliban has dissolved 5 key departments: the Human Rights Commission, the Election Commission, the Ministry of Women's Affairs, the High Council for National Reconciliation, which was once a key security council that protected the Afghan constitution, and lastly, Ministries for Peace and Parliamentarian Affairs. The Taliban's justification for this move is a cash crunch. Afghanistan faces a budget deficit of more than $500 million. So, while unveiling their first annual budget, Taliban officials deemed some departments now unnecessary. All the sections closed are crucial to a stable social and political life in the country. The Taliban did say that the bodies could be reactivated in the future if needed. The key word here being if needed, though similar promises have been made by the Taliban before. Earlier this year, the Taliban said that all high schools and colleges for girls, after which women were asked only to venture out if a male companion was present. Then, just recently, Afghan women were given a ruthless choice: cover your face in public, or even better, don't bother leaving your home. Overnight, years of progress have been lost. Just today, the Afghan Interior Minister promised, quote, very good news for secondary school girls. He hinted at a mechanism linking the school dress codes and how education should be based on Afghan culture and Islamic rules. At this moment, WION doesn't have any more information about the details of that claim. Shifting our focus now to France, to a city that has legalised the wearing of bikinis in its publicly funded swimming pools. Women can now wear the bikini in the city of Grenoble. The bikini is an all-in-one swimsuit used by some Muslim women to cover their bodies when they're in the pool. In most of France, the bikini is prohibited in state-run pools, and strict swimwear rules apply to everyone, including men, who are required to wear tight-fitting trunks. This decision was pushed through by Grenoble's mayor, Eric Piolle. He's a high-profile politician with the Green Party. His initial proposal ran into fierce opposition, but he managed to rally enough votes, and the measure passed by the slimmest of margins, with 29 votes in favour and 27 votes against, after an intense debate that lasted for over 2 hours. This is not the first time that this full-body swimwear has caused a political row. 6 years ago, about 30 French coastal resorts banned the bikini from beaches, an initiative taken by the right-wing mayor of Cannes. The rules, which were introduced after a string of terror attacks in France, were eventually struck down as discriminatory. Grenoble's decision has refocused attention on secularism in France, where the state is required to be neutral towards religion and allows everyone the freedom to practice their faith as long as there is no threat to public order. Now, in a fast change of gears, we move on to the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp defamation trial, just on the outskirts of Washington, D.C. It is getting uglier by the day as their personal and often toxic testimonies unravel in public. It doesn't look like anything less than a deeply unseemly Hollywood drama. Here's a quick roundup of Amber Heard's cross-examination from last night.
I'm sorry I hit you like this, but I did not punch you. I did not deck you. I was hitting you. I don't know what the motion of my actual hand was, but you're fine. I did not hurt you. I did not punch you. I was hitting you.
Oh no, a hug will save it all. Everything we just went
I just wanted to touch you.
Really? After all this shit you just said?
I just wanted to give
you a hug. After all this shit you fucking accused me of? You want to touch me?
Please stop me. Please stop.
No, we'll never see each other again. You won't neck. Don't take my glasses off. You know, like looking at not my eyes. You will not see my eyes again.
What that conversation is about the disparity, the disparity between Johnny and I in our physical fights, the disparity of how he would proactively punch me and I would have to resort to reactively hitting him. I am talking about the difference between a punch, which Johnny did often, and me having to hit him in my defense.
He was wearing rings on that occasion?
I pretty much always knew him to wear rings.
Okay, let's please pull up Defendant's Exhibit 170A, which is already in evidence, Your Honor. You testified that this is a picture you took after that incident, right, Ms. Heard?
Yes, that was one where he grabbed me.
And hit you in the face so many times that you don't remember. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
And there's no injuries to your face in this picture, are there?
Not that this picture shows.
And there's no medical records reflecting that you sought treatment after this alleged incident either.
I did not seek medical treatment at this time. At one point, he ripped the top of my shirt. I don't really remember what it was, but I remember I had a breast exposed. At some point, I pull at his lapel of his shirt, and he rips the shirt off of him and wraps it around my neck. And that's how I woke up. The next morning, actually, I woke up with it still around my neck and with a giant knot in the back of my head. First of all, I don't think that's funny. I don't know what a grown woman does. I was not also in a pranking mood. My life was falling apart. I was at a crossroads in my life that was really serious, and I had just been attacked on my 30th birthday by my violent husband with whom I was desperately in love and knew I needed to leave. It was not really a jovial time, and I don't think that's funny, period. That's disgusting. Johnny freaked out because it looked like me. They had used a body double. Unbeknownst to me, without my permission, they used a body double to do a sex scene. So I have an incredibly jealous man who already is upset with me for breaking the rule that I had a sex scene. On top of that, I'm telling him it wasn't me. I didn't shoot that scene. And you can imagine how upset he was. He was irate and was calling me a liar, among other things. And we had that combined with the fact that I had even entertained doing this job that involved James Franco was a pressure cooker. I called it a week of hell. He also put cigarettes out on himself. He'd flick them at me and once or twice tried to put one out on me, but mostly he would do it while screaming at me. He once did it right in front of me, screaming at my face as he put the cigarette out on his cheek.
The case continues. A massive sandstorm hit the Iraqi capital of Baghdad on Monday, prompting the Iraqi Ministry of Health to announce a state of emergency. Poor visibility conditions forced the authorities to suspend all outbound and inbound flights to Iraq. We're going to leave you today with the visuals of that sandstorm. I'll be back again tomorrow with another edition of WION Live Broadcast from Washington, D.C. Thanks for watching and stay with WION. World is one.
An orange haze clouded the streets of Baghdad on Monday, the result of a sandstorm that shut down schools and offices. Visibility in the capital and southern Iraqi cities was down to just a few hundred feet, the byproduct of what residents say is an unprecedented number of sandstorms in recent weeks. Ahmed Zaman is a taxi driver in the capital.
These storms have become monthly. Every 3 or 4 days they come back. It's due to climate change and the lack of rain. When people feel suffocated, there is no oxygen and they have to go get oxygen.
Rows of seats and luggage belts were empty in the Najaf airport. In the capital, the airport said it was closing its airspace and halting flights due to low visibility. Authorities in Baghdad, including the Education Ministry, declared a day off for local government institutions, with the exception of health services. Hundreds of people across the capital and southern cities went to hospitals with breathing difficulties, medical officials said. Isan Maloud is an accident and emergency doctor.
We have been in a state of complete readiness this past month. We've received patients with suffocation from the sandstorms. Admission is open for everyone, and whoever comes is admitted to hospital and receives the treatment needed until they have recovered and can be released to go home. All the means are available, machines and oxygen.
Recently, Iraq has been having at least one sandstorm a week. It's the 5th most vulnerable country in the world to the climate crisis, according to the United Nations.
Arab.